Hey, so I am a podcast man, meaning I listen to a lot of podcasts. Don't actually host one though, just the YouTube channel for now. But yeah, today I'm going to go through my top 5 favorite movie-based podcasts, as you know, because you've already read the title and you know how to read, right? So yeah, let's get to it. Okay, so coming in at number 5, but I do want to stress that this isn't necessarily a ranking. I don't know, like, I love all of these. I don't want to be like, you know, it's not a hard ranking, but it's in a list, so it's number 5, okay? Coming in at number 5 is a podcast called Find Your Film, hosted by Bruce Perky, Eric Holmes, and Greg Sirasvasti. I'm so sorry, Greg. I don't know how to say your name properly. But yeah, no, this is a great podcast where they just cover the latest films. It's very informative. That's kind of your go-to for this one. Like, if you want to know all about the latest releases and everything, their kind of objective and premise is to help the listener literally find their film, and I like it a lot. And I'm also cheating here because coming in also at number 5, yeah, this is kind of a top 6 favorite podcast, okay, but this one is also hosted by Greg, so you know, I'm kind of fitting it in there. It's called Cinematics, and their premise is that they literally see everything. Like, the start of the podcast, the intro goes like, it tells you how many movies come out every single year, and you'd have to be a cinema addict to see them all, and they do. That's probably an exaggeration. I don't think they literally see everything, but they do see a lot, and it's impressive as hell. And his co-host is Anderson Cowan, who I have a strong just interest in. I really like that guy. He's a great podcaster, and another one may come up on this list soon, so I'll get to talking about him a bit later. And then coming in at number 4 is a podcast called The Flophouse. This is hosted by 3 guys named Dan McCoy, Stuart Wellington, and Elliot Kalin. And these guys have just the greatest comedic timing. This is probably the funniest podcast on this list because these guys, at least the 2 of them, Elliot and Dan, have experience in writing for like late night shows, like those comedy shows. And like, it shows. These guys just, they know how to do a bit. They know how to play off each other. Like, if one does come up with a stupid bit, the others kind of understand what's going on and play along with it. It's always so funny. These guys are very intelligent, clearly. And yeah, it always makes me laugh so much. The premise, though, for the podcast is that they cover, well, cinematic flops, whether that be financially or critically. So they're talking about like so bad they're good movies. And I don't know, while I'm not the type of person to go out of my way to purposefully watch a bad movie just because it's funny or whatever, it's great listening to these guys describe these movies. It's always a laugh. And yeah, it's a fantastic podcast. But the topics, sometimes the movies that they cover can be a bit hurtful, particularly when it comes to the horror genre. Sometimes they'll cover movies that I genuinely like, and then it makes me feel a bit dumb. But that's okay. Horror is not for everyone, and I get it. Okay, and then coming in at number 3 is the Sincast, hosted by the guys that are behind the CinemaSins YouTube channel. And look, that channel, those guys, they get a lot of flack, okay? People shit on them, call them like, I don't know, not real film fans because they complain about everything and they must hate movies, right? But honestly, listen to this podcast and you'll hear a different side of them. There's clearly a love for film here and a clear passion behind these guys. And yeah, you really kind of learn about who they are a little bit more through the podcast. And also, they don't just talk about films on the podcast. Like, sometimes they do talk about real life stuff and you kind of learn about who they are. Like, they have this rant segment where they just kind of rant about things, and often it turns out to be about like traffic. They just complain about traffic, and for some reason I find it kind of riveting. Like, why would I want to be listening to guys from America complain about traffic while I'm here in Australia? Has nothing to do with me, but I love it. It's so funny and I relate to it and everything. But the main premise behind their podcast is that they often cover an interesting list. They make their own kind of unique list. Like, one, they have this reoccurring one called That Poor Bastard Movies, which goes through talking about very unlucky movie characters. Just like that poor bastard from that movie. And I enjoy that. There's also one they did like last year or something called Best Sore Thumb Movies, which covered movies that stood out in an actor's filmography, but, you know, like in a good way. Ones that didn't quite fit their usual thing, but ones that were kind of notable. And so they often just do kind of unique lists like that, and I do enjoy it, and it's good. If you hate the YouTube channel, try the podcast, and maybe you'll actually see that these guys are actually kind of cool. I don't know, maybe. I also just wanted to give a shout out to two little honorable mentions. First up, Middle Class Film Class. That's a really good one. Then there's Pop Cultural Exchange, done by my mate Lynn, who also does Much Ado About Nothing on YouTube. That's his YouTube channel. Check out those two as well. But then coming in at number 2 of the top 5 is, and honestly, my 1 and 2 can be like just swapped back and forth all the time. Doesn't matter. Like I said, it's not really a ranking, but I love both of these next two equally so much. But number 2 is The Weekly Planet. This is hosted by the guy who is behind the Mr. Sunday Movies YouTube channel. James Clement is his real name, and Nick Mason is his co-host. And the premise behind this one is that they are gonna shoot red hot comic book movie news right up the listeners' buttholes. So if you're up for that, listen to it. No, basically they just go through a lot of upcoming movie news for like blockbusters and stuff. It's a lot of pop culture stuff and nerdy stuff. Sometimes they'll cover comics as well. So while they don't often go into the deepest topics in terms of going into indie films or horror or something like that, they definitely have you covered for, yeah, the bigger films and everything. But really what you're coming into the Weekly Planet for is their unique personality and unique sense of humor. Nobody has senses of humor like these two guys. Like, it's just so damn good. And you'll see on the Great Mates Facebook page that we've kind of created, it's like the fan page or whatever. Although it's official because they're on it as well. We've all kind of adopted this sense of humor and everybody kind of speaks in their vocabulary. There's a lot of references and everything. It's always so funny. These guys are so great and memorable. Easily two of the most lovable hosts on this list. And it just hits close to home and is relatable as well because they're two guys from Melbourne and everything like me, and I enjoy that. I actually love hearing a voice that sounds like mine, you know what I mean? Often all these podcasts and stuff that I listen to are from Americans, which obviously there's nothing wrong with. Most of the things I watch and listen to and everything are from Americans, but it's nice to hear these guys who are just close to home, literally. And yeah, I absolutely love these guys. Definitely a big recommend. And then coming in at number 1, and like I said, I love this pretty much equally as my number 2. It's a podcast called The Film Vault, hosted by a guy called Anderson Cowan, who I mentioned earlier, and his co-host Brian Bishop. And these two kind of cover everything when it comes to film, in that Anderson Cowan really likes indie, unique films. He likes giving small films the spotlight and kind of talking about movies that might not often get their chance and the attention a lot of the time. While Brian easily covers the blockbusters and stuff. He's very well known for loving Transformers and things like that. Kind of gets shit for it. And yeah, I absolutely love this podcast very much. Half of their premise of this show, because recently this year they've started doing 2 episodes a week, but so 1 episode in the week covers the latest movies and everything, and they review stuff and whatever. It's kind of your basic thing there. It's very good, but you know, it's not the most unique thing. That's what a lot of these podcasts do. But then they also do their top 5 in the second episode for the week, and this is actually a lot more unique than it sounds like, because often they'll do, like recently they've done top 5 game show movies, which is just kind of a unique thing. Like, not a lot of people will do that. Usually people would be like, you know, you see a lot of YouTube channels be like top 5 comedy movies. That's not what these guys do. These guys get way more specific than that. Another recent one is top 5 movies set in the future that is now the past in real life. They just have great, unique ideas like that, and it's always really interesting to hear what they come up with. I will say that they often come up with older movies that I'm not even familiar with, and that kind of wrecks the momentum a little bit for me. That's on me. That's my fault. Just because I'm not that familiar with a lot of older movies. That's on me. But yeah, Anderson Cowan is, if you ask me, one of the greatest podcasters ever. He's just such an interesting person. I love hearing him just wax on, as he would say. And yeah, definitely an interesting guy. And then Brian Bishop, I really love as well. He kind of has this great ability to kind of joke about himself, self-deprecating humor and everything. But he knows a lot about films as well. Like, I look up to these two guys because they really know what they're talking about, and I really appreciate that. And yeah, the show is looked at as a service for the listeners to make sure that they're not wasting their time and actually watching great cinema. And that's cool. That's a cool premise. So that is all. Those are my top 5 movie-based podcasts and everything. Let me know some of your favorite podcasts, because I'm always looking to listen to more. Don't necessarily have to be movie based, but that's typically what I listen to, so yeah. And let me know if you like any of these and all that stuff. And yeah, cool. I don't know what else I'm saying. I'm not saying anything. This is an awkward little outro as opposed to usual, right? I never know how to end a video. What am I talking about? Okay, anyway, do the things, like and comment and share and subscribe. Those are the things. Do them. Okay, gonna get out of here.